5 and 6/8, streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Pelicans just relentless on the attack all night long. Williamson gets inside, lays it up and in. And this, not only the largest lead of the game, but it ties the largest deficit of the season for the Warriors. And it's in the last two games, they've trailed by 27. Nance with the block. Here comes Zion Williamson. Nothing seems forced with the Pelicans offensively tonight. Just beautiful ball movement, open shots. Hawkins knocks down the three, and the lead is 30.
And the boos were raining down inside Chase Center once again as we welcome you into Dubs OT with JD right here on KNBR, the sports leader. 808 KNBR is the number, and that was ugly. Boy, we've said that before. Pelicans win it 141-105. Warriors found themselves down by as many as 41. They were down 25 in the first half, cut it all the way down to 11 in the third quarter, but from 11 it would go up to 41, and the Warriors end up losing this one by 36. And Golden State completing a 2-5 homestand. And the Warriors are in a very bad way right now as they dip to 3 games under 500 at 17-20. And they were lifeless for a second consecutive game inside Chase Center. And I'm going to come out and just cut right to the chase. That's the kind of game that gets a head coach fired. On top of the game that the Warriors played on Sunday in Chase Center against the Raptors. On top of the game that started this homestand against the Miami Heat, who were missing 4 of their top 6 rotation players, and the Warriors got smoked in that game and completely and utterly physically dominated, basically. So you come out, and Draymond Green has his press conference yesterday, and we're going to revisit a lot of what Draymond had to say. But you come out basically with a new energy toward finishing the homestand strong and then getting off on the road, and the trade deadline's coming up, and it's an opportunity to sort of recalibrate, and you come out and you play as bad or worse as you did on Sunday, and you look completely and utterly uninspired. Steve Kerr made another lineup change. It didn't matter. Brandon Podziemski went into the starting lineup. Kevon Looney went back into the starting lineup. He's been in and out. Podziemski's been in and out. Chris Paul's been in and out. Kuminga's been in and out. Wiggins has been in and out. Basically, everybody not named Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have been in and out of the Warriors starting lineup. Even Draymond Green, due to injury or suspension or whatever it is, he's been in and out. And the Warriors came out and turned the ball over in their first 2 possessions. Jonathan Kuminga, Stephen Curry. Young player, future Hall of Famer, 4-time NBA champ, 2-time MVP. So it's all ends of the spectrum. It's young players, it's veteran players. Warriors came out immediately after getting smoked Sunday and got down 9-2, 15-4. The Pelicans are raining down threes. And it was 46-27 at the end of the first quarter. The Pelicans put 46. That was the most the Warriors have had put on them in a first quarter at home in 33 years. 1991. 1991. And really the only bright spot of the night for the Warriors was a Stephen Curry, Corey Joseph, Moses Moody, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney lineup that showed some life after the Warriors got down 25 in the second quarter, after they were getting booed at Chase Center. And that group helped cut it down to 13 at halftime. And then it kind of lingered around 11 in the second quarter before all hell broke loose again, and the Pelicans put another thumping on the Warriors. Oh, by the way, the great Greg Silver pointing out, as we were getting locked in and kind of trying to figure out what the heck we're going to talk about with you here as we open up the YouTube chat and the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, and we got phone lines lit already. We're going to get right to the calls here on KNBR in very short order. 808 KNBR, the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Moses Moody went to the locker room grabbing his lower left leg. So Moses Moody, who was, I think, without a doubt, the Warriors' best player tonight, the bright spot, really the best player the last 2 games combined, and somebody that if you were thinking, hey, he's earned the right to get on the floor a little bit more amid the abyss and the craziness and everything bad that's going on for the Warriors right now, he may very well be injured. I mean, he is injured. It's just to the extent of what level the injury is. I can't come on and start this show without pointing out that teams win and lose in the NBA and really in professional sports, but in the NBA predominantly, they win and lose with their best players. And look, Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson and even Draymond, who didn't play tonight, which is part of the problem, why the Warriors can't stop anybody defensively. You win and lose based on your stars and your best players. And Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they have to own what's going on right now. Like, tonight's not a night. Like, you can look around and say, you know what, Jonathan Kuminga didn't play great, and Brandon Podziemski may have had the worst game of his career, and he's been struggling a little bit over the course of the last week. Like, you can say, it's on Steph and Klay to lead the way, to help hold this thing together, to be welcoming of the young players and help them be put in positions to where they can have this team succeed. And when you come out and play that uninspired, it sort of leads you to wonder what is coming next. And I had that thought really based on the way Sunday went. Like, man, if that happens again here pretty quickly, something's got to give. And I know we're all talking about what's the trade going to be. And I know we're all talking about would they really give up Kuminga, and people are fed up with Wiggins, and how does this team get better, and is it worth saving? Do you tear the whole thing down to the studs? Like, all of those things are legitimate questions. But for the Warriors to come out and play the way that they did, getting booed, down 25, horrendous defense, they look like they didn't care tonight. That effort coming off Sunday's effort makes it look like a team that's quit. It makes it look like they've quit on each other. It makes it look like the veterans have quit on the young guys. It makes it look like everybody's quit on Steve Kerr and on this Warrior season, of which there is still more than half to go. So as bad as it is, and as much as the easy, simplistic answer may be tear it down, well, how do you tear it completely down when Stephen Curry's still on the roster? So I think there has to be a middle ground here, whether it's trade some vets and get your financial house in order and try to play more young guys around Curry, or whether it's go all in, which is what the Warriors did 7 months ago in L.A. when they got beat by the Lakers. Steph and Klay and Steve Kerr, Draymond, they all went in on each other. But something's got to give. Trade deadline 4 weeks from tomorrow and counting. And I think the Warriors are going to have to do something far sooner than 4 weeks from tomorrow. Because what happened tonight and what happened Sunday and what happened against Miami and what happened too often on this homestand cannot continue to happen with this current iteration of players. If you're going to get smoked like that, you might as well just play all the young guys and let them develop and figure out what you got. Another brutal game for Andrew Wiggins, with the exception of the couple of minutes that he was out there with that other group that I mentioned to close out quarter number 2. And I think that goes to show how bad Wiggins' night truly was, because Wiggins was a minus 29 for the game, but he was about a plus 10 in that 6-minute, 7-minute stretch. So that tells you that Wiggins, for the rest of the time that he was on the floor, the other, let's say 15, 16 minutes, he was basically like a minus 40. Which would put him right up there for worst on the court honors over that stretch. But it was everybody tonight. It was everybody tonight. Look at Steph Curry, 3 turnovers early. Clay had turnovers early. I mean, I'm sort of at a loss in our question of the night. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Our question of the night, as people continue to pile in on the YouTube chat. How much can Draymond Green help this team? Because that's sort of been billed now as the final thing that needs to happen prior to the Warriors hitting the trade deadline and determining ultimately which path they're going to choose from there. Whether it's choose to attempt to get better around the veterans, whether it's choose to attempt to just go young, get the financial house in order, whatever it needs to be. But how much can Draymond truly help this team at this point? And what direction do you go at the trade deadline? So we'll kind of make it a twofold question. But it is ugly and something's got to give. And tonight is the kind of game to where you look at, when you just watch the league on a night in, night out basis, tonight's the kind of game where a head coach, not with the credentials and the acumen and the history of Steve Kerr, would be very much on a hot seat. Because it looked like his main guys gave up. All right, we got full phone lines. 808 KNBR is the number. It's John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Tonight was a new low. Warriors lose 141-105 to the Pelicans. Warriors now 17-20. Pelicans improved to 23-15. And look, the Pelicans are a good young team that's clicking on all cylinders. They handled business, and they've done this to some other teams of late. But you can't have the effort that you had tonight right out of the gate off of the effort that you had against the Raptors on Sunday. And now, by the way, this team's going on the road. This is a 2-5 homestand. And this team's going on the road. They had a 1-5 homestand earlier. This team's season has been wrecked basically by those 2 homestands. You go 3-10 in a 13-game stretch, basically at home. And now you got to play a bunch of road games, and it starts in Chicago Friday, Milwaukee, Memphis, Utah, some winnable games. But at this point, you look at the Warriors, and it's like, yeah, winnable games, but this team can lose to anybody unless they can get their act together and get their act together in short order. All right, let's get to the phones. YouTube chat, as things continue to build up. We'll get to the YouTube chat as we'll keep this thing going as long as the people want to speak here on the Sports Leader. Let's get to the calls, and we'll get it rolling tonight with Joey in Pittsburgh. Joey in Pittsburgh is up first here. It's Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. Hey, Joey.
Hi, JD. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, my man. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit at a loss tonight. I was not expecting that.
I wasn't expecting that either. I'm disgusted with this team, and like you said, their lack of effort. I mean, that was just awful tonight. Just awful. I've been watching the Warriors since 1965, and I got to go back to Joe Barry Carroll and Chris Washburn, to a team that just looks like they didn't even care. And, you know, and the thing that upsets me the most or bothers me, Draymond, you know, what he's done. Clay's not the same player. But for Jonathan Kuminga, who has not proven himself or actually become what we thought he was going to be, to go with the coach like that, who with a resume like that, that's bad news, man. That's bad. He hasn't done any. He hasn't proven himself yet. He's had opportunities. He plays out of control sometimes. He makes a lot of dumb mistakes. Does he have talent? Yeah, but for a guy like that to say, Steve Kerr has lost the team, I mean, that's who I'd get rid of.
Well, and
I mean, that's ridiculous, man.
Thanks, Joey. And look, I think there's a lot of people that think, and we appreciate the call, that Kuminga was right, and look, even it's been framed at least that Steph Curry believed Kuminga was right. And look, I think I don't want to turn this into Kuminga versus the Warriors and all of that. I don't. The one thing I will say about Kuminga is if you're looking down the path of ways the Warriors can get better in the short term, there's really three players, and I've said this a lot, that have to be included in the conversation as players that you'd be open to trading. And it's not just Kuminga. It's Kuminga and Wiggins and Chris Paul because of his contract. So if you're looking to go quick fix, add somebody from the outside, continue to be Steph, Clay, Draymond, and then you probably are going to have to give up Kuminga to be able to get anybody of value back. The issue that I have really more than anything is, and this is where it's unfortunate, the fan base can be split as to whether or not Kuminga was right or wrong. And look, I think he had a point against Denver. I mean, Stephen Curry made that point. Like, he should have been back in there against Denver the second time. Now, the Christmas game, maybe not. Should he be fostering frustration in the media when he's not given certain opportunities? I mean, no. And that was the big part of the discussion, aside from, well, whether he should have been on the court or not. It was basically, should he have spoken out in the manner that he did, or do you keep it in-house? Do you go to the coach, et cetera? But the problem with it is he has not played well in the aftermath of the two times that he's done it. He had maybe his worst game of the season, the first game after the Christmas game against Miami. And then he played all right going back to the game against Detroit after the second Denver game. But then the last two games he has not played well. So if it set him into a funk, then that's not good for him and that's not good for the team. But here's the other thing. There's been this veteran-young player rift. And look, I'm going to put the onus on the veterans because I think Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green have not been as welcoming to the young players as they've needed to be. I think the hubris of the 4 championships at times has led to a lack of patience that I think has helped in part to foster this negative culture where the young players don't always feel included. And the young players sometimes do feel scapegoated. And that's not to say that they're perfect players or that they're saviors or that the next wave of some great dynastic run. But I do think at times they've been cast aside unfairly by the veterans. And I think Steve Kerr's basically in the media and from the fan base been the guy that's taken the heat for it. Jordan Poole also, going back to him. So I think everybody has to be accountable, from Steve to Steph to Clay to Draymond. Everybody has to be accountable among that core for the young players maybe not feeling like they're as much a part of the team or the action or the culture or whatever as they need to be. And when you see a lackluster, low energy, gutless, yes, and I don't want to get caught up in the gutless thing tonight. I know that's fun and all that, but this was gutless. This was, I mean, it's crazy. This was more gutless than Sunday, which was more gutless than the Miami game. I mean, it's where this whole thing started at the beginning of the homestand. But I think, like, tonight's not a night where I'm going to be blaming the young players, I guess is my point. Tonight's a night where I'm blaming Draymond for not being here for the last month. I'm blaming Steph and Clay for not maybe being as inclusive as they need to be to these young players. And for there being this disconnect. Now, that being said, this roster does not connect well. And the Warriors have to figure out a way in short order to figure that out. All right, back to the phones. Drew Down in Tracy. What's going on, Drew Down?
What's up, JD? Quick retort. I don't know what watching that game, I'm not sure how your main takeaway was Kuminga was the problem, not you. That was said a previous
Yeah,
call.
it was not me.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
No, I know, not you, but that's beside the point. But a few quick points. The turnovers are just. I feel like the game was lost in the first quarter. Just like it was almost like a replay of the Raptors game. I don't understand how this team continues to not value the ball. This isn't the 2014-15 Warriors. If they want to be like the Spurs and have the Spurs took care of the ball. If you want to be this long-term dynasty and even continue to be in the playoffs, the Spurs took care of the ball. The way this team continues to throw the ball around is just it's maddening, and I don't understand how they expect to win if they continue to take care of the ball like that. It's completely frustrating. And then same issues on defense, dribble penetration, guys getting beat by the dribble, the defense over rotates, open 3-pointers.
Yeah.
They were knocking down threes all game. And then on offense, the flip side, the offense is stagnant. This motion offense, it's not working. Teams are switching. They're not man are chasing. They're switching. This motion offense, it's outdated. It's not working. So I don't know. I thought the pick and roll is way more effective, and the lineup, Curry and Paz in the backcourt, it doesn't work. It's too small on defense, especially against a team like the Pelicans. I was like, go ahead, JD.
No, I'll just jump in for a second. I mean, that's where I think Steve Kerr he can't win for losing at this point, because he puts Podziemski in there after Wiggins and Kuminga together, which didn't work, and he's done with that, so he's got to put another playmaker in there. I mean, I guess maybe the answer is Moody. Maybe you put Moody in there now, but it's just he's tried basically everybody around Steph and Clay at different points, from young to old, and nothing can stick for more than a handful of games. They had played pretty well with the lineup that they had out there tonight at the beginning, and you mentioned some of the bad defense and the overhelping and all that. That is one area where I will say that's where they really, and the Pelicans did this and the Raptors did that, they really went at Kuminga there. And again, I'm not putting it all on him, but that was the thing that was similar in both of those last two first quarters, and the first 6 minutes is basically putting him in actions where they bait him into overhelping, or they bait him into losing his man at the 3-point line, and it winds up getting everybody off to a good start. So, again, not putting it on him, but I just feel like Steve Kerr is at a point where he's almost tried everything, and nothing seems to work for longer than maybe 3 or 4 games, or there's an injury, or there's a suspension, and then you got to change it all up again.
No, and those are fair points, but I think Wiggins has been a complete disaster this year. And I just like Curry, when in Curry's career where the team's been successful, has he been next to a small guard in the backcourt? Never. So I feel like the answer was Moody. And again, I know Moody's had it up and down, but I feel like it's like you put a bigger guard next to Curry. He has this obsession, and sometimes I feel like lately without Draymond, of putting a quote-unquote ball handler next to Curry.
Playmaker, yeah.
But to me, it's like, I don't know. I mean, again, like you said, he's tried a lot, but I just felt like I thought it was a disaster from the start, putting a small guard next to Curry. I mean, I don't think that's going to work. And then I thought in the third quarter, I noticed, TJD was, struggling a little bit with Valanciunas' size. Where's Looney? Isn't he supposed to be, our bigger center? So, like, if we can't rely on him to guard bigger players, I mean, he gives great effort, but I don't know. I thought that was a point that was, that was obviously struggling. Why don't you go back to putting the bigger player on him for a little bit? And then I thought in the third quarter, Kuminga and Moody were playing well. I know Kuminga didn't have a great game, but he was getting to the line. He drew a fourth foul on Brandon Ingram.
He's better in the third quarter for sure.
Yeah, he was attacking 6 free throw attempts in the game. He got Brandon Ingram fourth foul, and then they subbed out Kuminga. Moody was gone, and they went to Paz and whoever else. And at that point, it was pretty much lights out. So I mean, like I said, he's trying, but for me, obviously, I'm sitting on the couch. You coaching, shout out Chris Paul, but it was like, as soon as I saw that happen, it's like we're making headway, and then it's like you take out the guys who are, obviously who are cutting into the lead and being effective, and as soon as they went out, it was kind of lights out. And then my last takeaway, like you said, is I've been resistant. I'm not a big trade machine guy, but over these last 2 games, it's like we need to make a move.
They do.
We need to do something. We need to add, maybe a big man. We need to do something, because I agree. This roster as constructed, even with Draymond coming back, it could be different, and it's going to look different against different teams. Pelicans and the Raptors have a lot of athletic players that have obviously give us problems, but they need to make a move and get some different guys in here. And I think Wiggins is the biggest thing, man. He hasn't. Yeah. He played great in 2022, but he's doing cardio out there, and get somebody else out there who's at least going to be somewhat effective. Because if not, this team's cooked.
Yeah, they got to do something. There's no doubt, Drew Down, and thank you for the call. Good points. As far as Looney was in foul trouble, so you went away from him. Trace Jackson-Davis scored well tonight. But, yeah, at times he's going to struggle with some of the bigger, more skilled centers on the floor. So that's something that they have to continue to work through. But, yeah, as far as they got to do something. But there's two things. It's how much can Draymond help this team coming back, and what can they do from the outside, and what's the proper course of action at this point from the out. What do you do? Do you try to get better around Steph, Clay, and Draymond and figure out which young players fit around that core three the best, and then look to trade a couple of the other ones to get one more vet in, whether it's Siakam or Markkanen or Caruso or Jarrett Allen? His name's come up a lot over the last couple of days. Like, do you trade from the young to try and get one of those guys? And look, not really any of those guys other than maybe Siakam's a true 2 on a team. Maybe, I guess Markkanen would be a true 2 from a scoring standpoint. But it's a matter of, are you going to be willing to give up what it would take? And I don't know that Markkanen's truly going to be available unless you're going to give up a lot. And I don't know that the Warriors have a lot to really give up in terms of young talent to try and bring somebody like that in. But the problem is everybody wants to get rid of Wiggins. Well, Wiggins is Wiggins is owed a lot of money over the next 3-4 years. So teams are not just going to be willing to trade for a player that right now looks like a sunk cost. And if you want Kuminga to go, well, you got to attach a player of great salary to him to get anybody back in return. So that means Wiggins or Chris Paul. So it really, to me, hinges on those three if you're going to look to make a move. But then what can you bring back? And is what you bring back good enough to be in position where you can win enough to make it all matter? Because the Warriors really are stuck in this middle ground right now where if you tear it down to the studs and just go young, then it's over, but you still got Steph Curry and Draymond Green with 3 more years on the deal after this year. And then if you go veteran, you may wind up with no young talent left in 2 years when Stephen Curry is really on the decline, or 3 or 4 or 5 years when he really is gone. Now, I guess you can jump off that bridge when you get to it, but it's quite the conundrum. And I don't think the Warriors at all anticipated that this season was going to end up where it stands currently on January 10th. All right, back to the phones. Alex in San Mateo next here on The Sports Leader. Hey, Alex.
Thanks for taking my call. I just want to say, without CP3 or Draymond, our defensive organization is abominable. We have late rotations. Players do not know who to rotate to. We have unnecessary switches. We're overhelping both in the paint and on the perimeter. We have pointless switches, minimal pre-switching, awful point of attack defense from players who should be better. We have an immense amount of basic individual mistakes, no helps, etc. Anytime our team is able to string together a few possessions of good defensive process, we look miles better, but again, we cannot sustain it for more than a few minutes. Again, Draymond is coming back, but I just don't think he's going to help. Compared to last year, it's just going to end up like last year against the Lakers or another big team like the Nuggets, where we are just outclassed. I just wanted to bring up the potential trades also with Siakam and Markkanen. Siakam would be nice. He's a smart ball handler. He can drive, but his shot has fallen off. I know he's been hot lately, but I just don't trust his shot to help space out our floor. Markkanen would be nice, but he's a catch-and-shoot player, and you would have to give up a lot for him. So, again, we are in a tough pickle. I just wanted to bring up also with Mike Dunleavy Jr., he is slept on. He was one of the first to bring up Poole. He was on the Poole train. Again, Poole didn't work out here, but, again, with his draft pick so late, Dunleavy was able to pick him out from the crowd even that late. And then, again, this current draft, he knocked it out of the ballpark. I think Warrior fans should be looking to put all their trust in Mike Dunleavy Jr. moving forward. I think we are sitting on a gold mine. Just let him cook. Things like that. These are questions, things that we don't want to bring up. But again, with Curry, it might be time to sort of blow it up and put all our faith in Mike Dunleavy Jr. I genuinely think he is a bit better than Bob Myers when it comes to drafting. Again, these past 3 games, they have given up. We can see it, and this is just our this is it. There's no further, nothing else to go forward from here. We can't compete with the Celtics. We can't compete with the 76ers. We cannot compete with the Nuggets. It's just time to realize that, unfortunately. So some tough questions need to be asked, and I have full faith in Mike Dunleavy Jr. Thanks for taking my call. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Alex. Alex and San Mateo checking in here. First part of that, no Draymond, no defense. And that was, again, on full display tonight. This team just cannot defend. They get confused. They don't know how to rotate. It's almost as if they don't fully understand the scheme without Draymond out on the floor yelling at everybody, telling them where to be and who to switch on to and where they need to step up. And so, yeah, I mean, that's now, as far as the rest of it, look, I think Mike Dunleavy's made some nice picks. Like, Podziemski looks like a nice pick. Trace Jackson-Davis looks like a nice pick. But there's a difference between, and I think this is the distinction, and this is really part of the issue here. It's not that you don't think Kuminga or Moody, who I know were Bob Myers draft picks, but it's not that you don't think Kuminga and Moody and Podziemski and Trace Jackson-Davis can play. All 4 of them can play in the league. We know that. But it's the question of what are they in the future versus what can they be on this team right now? And look, I think they all 4 can be quality role players, and I think Kuminga wants to be more than a role player. I think Moody is pretty much the perfect role player, and he's shown that in each of the last 2 years in the playoffs, that he can basically not play and still be a quality playoff role player. I think Podziemski and Trace Jackson-Davis have shown that they can be quality role players. But the question you have to ask yourself is, if you don't think that these guys are future starters, or at least one of them is a future star, then you got to be then I think you got to be more inclined to look to move off of them. And again, that's not an indictment of any of them as if they can't play or anything like that. I think they all 4 can play. But if you have the ability in the short term to get better around Steph, Clay, and Draymond, then I think at this point, if you're the Warriors, you got to be inclined. Look, everybody, I'm sure the Warriors right now would love in a vacuum to just trade Wiggins. Well, you got to attach something to Wiggins and trade him, or you got to take somebody back that's having just as bad a year for another team as Wiggins is with just as much time left on his contract. So start looking at those players. Like, that's the kind of, when you start looking at, hey, you want to trade Wiggins for nothing. If you want to start doing that, well, then you can't trade a player for nothing. You got to trade a player for a player of like salary. So you're probably going to be trading a player back. You know, it's the old your problem for my problem trade. You know, find a team that wants to get off another guy that has 3 years and $80 million left on his contract. And then you'll have yourself a swap. So, you know, I get, yeah, Wiggins has got to go and all this and that, but it's not as simple as that. Marcel on San Diego is next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Marcel, you're on Dubs OT with JD. What's going on tonight?
Hey, man. I hope you give me some time. I've been waiting. And I got
go for
4 season I'm in San Diego tonight. I got 4 season tickets invested in this team. I have a small company. I give them to my workers as bonuses. I am disgusted with this team. You guys bury 3 points I want to make. I think you'll like it, Jay. You cover this team. You guys buried the lead. Kerr is coaching as if he's gone. And I think he's gone. He's not gone. He's not going to be fired. He's going to
end of the year.
Correct. He's done. Where is he going to go? I think he's made his money. He's going to go back into the broadcast booth. There's less. This team is not good, number one. I'm disgusted. Did you see I know you were at the game. Did you have a monitor and watch the ABC telecast?
I did. You know, I was going back and forth because tonight was one of those weird ones. Very unique situation. It was ABC, but it was also NBC Bay Area here in the Bay. So I was kind of going back and forth.
Yeah. I didn't watch. I watched the ESPN ABC. They showed a picture. This was in the fourth quarter, early when the game was pretty much over. They show a shot of Draymond Green, and he's sitting there laughing. And did you see that shot?
I did not. I did not.
Well, your other callers will know. He's there, and he's sitting next to, I think it was Moody, I don't know, but he's giggling and laughing. And I said to myself, this is the guy that arguably may have caused this. I mean, they're not a good team. They're not as good. They're not. There's 8 teams much better than them in the cut. But I'm saying to myself, this is a guy that probably wrecked the season for them. He's sitting there laughing. And my first thought was, man, you got to show restraint. You got to show be reserved, be withdrawn. He's there laughing. And it's going to be replayed tonight. It's all over I saw it on the social. I'm saying to myself, what is this guy laughing about? This is a guy who just got $100 million. He wrecked the team. By the way, Bob Myers looked like he was a double agent. He signed Wiggins to the 4-year deal. Why? Wiggins is he ain't a frontline player. And Draymond, what the hell was he getting the extent? I know they had to pay him, but my point is he's sitting there laughing and giggling. And I said to myself, that ain't a good look on a normal night. Your team is out. You wrecked their team. And the fact you're sitting there laughing, and they showed it, JD, 3 or 4 times. He's on the bench, and he's looking, and I think it was Moody that was sitting next to him, and they're laughing. And I said to myself, that ain't no good look on a normal team. This team, I saw that, man. I became disgusted. I appreciate your show, and I hope you get some other callers that react. I thought that was disgusting. Thank you.
All right, Marcel, appreciate it. Marcel in San Diego checking in. 808 KNBR is the number. I thought he had 3 points. I think he only made 2, but that's all right. He made it. It took enough time for 3, but it was a good thought. Yeah, Kerr. There's no way Kerr's coming back right now. I mean, it's a wrap. I mean, that feels like again this right now, January 10th. And look, there's plenty of time for things to change. This team can get on a run. Although I wonder how long Joe Lacob is going to remain patient. I think you're going to get Draymond back, and you're probably going to look to make some kind of a trade, and then you'll see. And look, Steve Kerr has earned the right to finish this season. I will absolutely say that. Like, Steve Kerr should not be fired during the season, given everything that he's brought to the table and brought to the Bay and brought to this organization. Like, I'll just flat out say that. Now, if it ends up being an amicable parting of ways come April or May, then that's a different story when his contract's up. But it just feels like he's trying everything he possibly can right now, and nothing consistently is working. As far as Draymond laughing on the bench, I didn't see it. I must have been toggling back and forth with the wrong broadcast at that point. But that's the kind of thing that absolutely galls a fan base.
No way this person said that.
It absolutely galls a fan base. And yeah, Draymond, you can trace a lot of the problems that this team has had this year. I mean, Draymond's not absolved from any of it. I mean, Mike Dunleavy Jr. said it. Draymond's been a pretty good player when he's been around. But the best ability is availability. And Draymond hadn't been available. And this team cannot defend without him. The longer he's out over the years, the worse their defense gets. And teams have picked them apart here on this homestand. Dallas picked them apart. Toronto picked them apart. Miami, after they got rolling, picked them apart. The Pelicans picked them apart. It was ugly, ugly stuff. So yeah, if that is true, it's the kind of thing that drives a fan nuts. When it's basically been billed as, well, Draymond's coming back and they're going to figure it out. Really, really, really bad. Really bad. All right, Eric in San Francisco is next. 808 KNBR is the number. Couple of questions on the board. It's Dubs OT with JD. How much can Draymond Green realistically help this team? And what do they do now with 4 weeks to go before the deadline? I think a move has to be made sooner than later. What move is that remains to be seen. We will hear from Steve Kerr tonight. We will go inside the Warriors locker room over at Chase Center as well. Eric, you're on the Sports Leader.
Hey, JD. Yeah, two points. First is, I think, obviously the dynasty is done, and I think the decision point was when we got the bad luck of getting the number 2 pick in the 2020 draft, so we couldn't get Anthony Edwards, and then we chose Wiseman and not Ball because Halliburton wasn't the number 3 prospect. So that and Kuminga over Wagner just completely destroyed the franchise in terms of having assets to trade or develop. But the bigger point is, I think that the Warriors should do nothing for the rest of the season. And the reason why I say that is they have to make a basic choice at the end of the season. And that is they can either go all in on the aging core and basically not win another title, because that's not happening. And we just are content watching 3 years of Steph and then being down to no assets. Hopefully we don't trade our first-round picks. Or we pretty much blow it all up. We let Clay walk at the end of the season. We see if Draymond can at least salvage some value, and we trade him. We see what we can do with Wiggins. And we go to Steph and we go, look, we're not winning a title. We want you to stay and help build this thing back up. But we understand if you want to go somewhere else. And I really think those are the two choices. And I'm not saying which way is the right way or the wrong way. I just think that a half measure would set this franchise back a decade, because we wouldn't even be making the playoffs in a year, and we would have traded away our assets for a team that wins 35 to 42 games. And I just don't think that is a very smart decision. So I really think it's either go all in or blow it all the way up. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, and hang with me for a second, Eric. When you say blow it all the way up, you mean Steph too? Or because to me that's what it had. It would almost have to mean that, because it's not.
I would say ideally, that's where I would really, but I would give Steph has earned the right to say either go all in with me and we recognize second round of the playoffs is our upside for the next 3 years, or either he fosters some basic draft picks like Cooper Flags in the 2025 draft, but we don't want to blow it up this year, because if we're in the top 4 of the draft, our pick then reverts unprotected next year except for the number 1 pick. So this draft sucks. So we want to keep our pick this year, which is why we do nothing the rest of the season, and then we make the basic split of either blow it up or go all in.
Fair enough. Appreciate the call. Thanks, Eric. Steph has to be involved in that conversation. That part I agree with. If they're going to have a lot of real difficult conversations here coming up, because I think the last week or so it's been, hey, Draymond's coming back. Win a couple of games, get to 500, Draymond comes back, you push forward from there, you try to make a run. Let's not forget the other thing that's been pushed from this team is, hey, we're really actually a lot better than our record, which, as I've said here for the last month and a half, you don't play that game when that's what bad teams say. That's what bad teams say. Bad teams that are 2 games under 500 say, well, if we'd won these 3 games, we'd be 8 games over. Doesn't work that way. In fact, whenever teams do that, typically they go the other direction toward the negative before they hit the direction toward the positive. OG Warrior fans know that. OG Warrior fans know that the team that always thinks they're a 48-win team when they're really a 38-win team ends up being a 32-win team. That's just reality. All right, 808 KNBR is the number if you're leaving Chase. Give me a call or shoot me a text. The Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. The YouTube chat is on fire. We got a lot of people that want to talk. Our question of the night, where will Draymond Green's return take the Warriors? Is it into the playoffs, the play-in, but no further, or still out of the top 10? How much can the Warriors reasonably expect Draymond Green to provide in terms of a boost? And it's official for me. They got to make a move. And I will tell you the direction that I would go coming up next. It's John Dickinson. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Oh, no! We suck again!
the sports leader. Hoops Heads, Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps ballin'. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
The Eagles will be fine. The Eagles will be fine, Doris. Don't worry. I'm going to stop there.
I'm not an Eagles fan. I might live in Philly now, but I did not grow up there.
See, this is not a good sign. There's 5:40 remaining here in the second. We're already talking about another sport because this game is not competitive right now. The Pelicans just putting on a fantastic performance. Continue to shoot just under 60% from the field.
Ugly night at Chase. ABC television with a call there. Mike Breen, Doris Burke, Doc Rivers. Warriors get thumped tonight. Pelicans all over the Dubs, 141-105. Warriors got down 46-27 at the end of the first quarter. They trailed by 25 in the middle of the second quarter before they cut that back down to 13. It kind of stayed around 13-11 into the third quarter, but the Pelicans closed the third on a run, outscoring the Dubs 32-23 in that quarter, and then it was all New Orleans in the fourth as they pushed it all the way out to what would be their largest lead of the game at 41. They end up winning it 141-105, so the Warriors now 17-20 on the season as the Pelicans get out of Chase Center 23-15. 808 KNBR is the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Where do the Warriors go from here? How much can you anticipate Draymond Green being added back to the mix as far as helping this Warriors team? And I'm at the point where they have to make a move. They have to make a move, and they can't wait 4 weeks to do it. I know Steve Kerr said yesterday that they've pretty much seen enough where they don't feel like they have to see a lot more of their team to be able to evaluate whether or not they want or need to make a move. But they got to do something, and it's got to go beyond just Draymond Green being added into the equation. And when will Draymond Green be back is another part of the equation, with his ramp-up set to roll here for roughly about another week, and the Warriors are about to hit the road. And you look at the standings with Golden State now 17-20. Here's a new low. The Warriors are no longer 11th in the West. They're actually 12th. The Utah Jazz have passed the Warriors. The Utah Jazz have passed the Golden State Warriors at 18-20. Just bring it on the air, Greg, because with that whole headphone thing, I don't hear you when you do that. Yeah.
I was just going to say that the Utah Jazz right now are up 17 points on the Denver Nuggets, which, as I've learned, is a completely insurmountable lead, and there is no way that the Jazz can lose this game.
Yeah. Not. But they've won 8 of the last 10 to climb all the way up to 18-20, and they are now closer to being a playoff team than or to being a playoff team, but a play-in team, even than the Warriors are. And the Warriors have played a lot of home games over the course of the last month. The Warriors have played 22 home games. So over half of their home games are now in the books. They're 11-11 at home. 11-11 at home after going 33-8 last year. So they're already a -3 with 19 home games to go. And the Warriors are 6-9 on the road. Warriors have only played 15 road games. 15! I'm looking at just a quick. The Suns have played 15. The Rockets have played 15. But other than that, the Cavs have played 16. The Pacers have played 16. But basically, the Warriors have played, along with Houston and Phoenix, the fewest amount of road games in the NBA. Yikes. Something's got to be done. What do the Warriors do? 808 KNBR. We'll get to the YouTube chat here coming up. We also will have Sounds of Silver. We will have fun with numbers, although not a lot of fun to be had for the Warriors tonight. It'd be a lot of ugly numbers, just like it was a lot of ugly numbers on Sunday following the Warriors getting thumped by the Toronto Raptors over at Chase. I think the Warriors need to be willing to move Jonathan Kuminga if that means that they can get a number 2 type player back into the fold. I just don't see how you can say you're going to double and triple down with the young players right now unless you're going to do a full-blown, all right, Clay, we're moving on. Like, there's just too much invested still in Steph and Draymond at this point, and the Warriors chose this path. And look, this is not an indictment of Jonathan Kuminga, who's played better basketball over the last month for the most part. A couple of poor games here and there, but for the most part, he's played his best basketball of his career over the last month and has dramatically improved. But the question becomes, as you start to look at it, how do you improve this team? And I feel like he has the most value among anybody that the Warriors would look to potentially give up. I also don't think you can just get a player like a Pascal Siakam for Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody alone at this point, because Wiggins' value is plummeted. It's not that you'd rather give up JK than Wiggins at this point in time. It's that I don't think Wiggins has any value without anything attached to him, unless you're willing to take a contract back that's pretty much as bad as Wiggins. So, again, what do the Warriors do other than rearranging the deck chair? I mean, you can basically try to trade Wiggins on his own for, again, a player that's struggling just as much as he is. You could try to trade Chris Paul, who's injured, for another $30 million player that you think could maybe help this team for another year. But I think when you look at what they need a bona fide number 2. And I think that's where Kuminga's value potentially around the league. Like, is Kuminga going to be a number 2 next to Steph Curry on a team that's going to be making a run here? Like, I mean, I don't foresee that. So to me, and I know Klay Thompson and his involvement in what his time is remaining with the Warriors beyond this year or not also plays a role in it. But I think when you look objectively, if you choose to go down the path of try to salvage this season, the player that has the most value outwardly to the league is Kuminga. And as much, but you have to be, but there's two things. If you look at wanting to get into the Siakam sweepstakes, if you're going to make that move, you're going to have to be willing to bring Siakam back for beyond next year. But the Warriors should be willing to do that anyway if they're going to make a trade like that, because they already have Draymond and Steph signed. And then you can start to maybe piece some of the other young players around Steph and Siakam and Clay and Draymond. You know, then you would have basically 4 of your starting 5 locked and loaded. You know, maybe that provides an opportunity to get Moses Moody into the starting lineup. But I just don't think they can stand pat. I don't think they can stand pat. I don't think they can just continue with, all right, Draymond's coming back and it's going to be the same group. And I don't know if they have another player on the roster that has enough value to bring back the caliber of player they need to improve at the level that they need to improve. And so that would lead down the path of where you have to. But the other thing is you have to be if you're the Warriors and you believe that Jonathan Kuminga is a future star, then you don't do it. But that may mean you don't do anything. Except for moves on the margins, and I just don't see this team as lost as they look right now with Draymond Green coming back and being able to fix them on the margins. Plus, those trades just don't happen a lot in the NBA. I don't see... And look, if the Warriors can get a guy like Siakam for Wiggins and Moody, then maybe you look to do that. But much like I've said, I don't think a team like Sacramento can get a Siakam unless they're going to include Keegan Murray. I don't think the Warriors could get somebody like Siakam unless they're going to include Kuminga. But maybe it gets down to the trade deadline and he's a player that's going to be a free agent. He already told Sacramento he didn't want to go there. But then the other question is, if he told the Kings he didn't want to go there, I mean, they right now to date are in a much better position than the Warriors are moving forward. Now, maybe that's market. Maybe that's lack of belief in what they've got going on. I don't know. But you would think that they would look pretty attractive from a basketball standpoint to Pascal Siakam. Maybe Siakam wants to play for the Warriors. Maybe Siakam wants to play with Curry. Maybe he'd be willing, if the Warriors were willing to pay him, to be Curry's number 2. But that's the thing that the Warriors, I think, absolutely need. And if they are going to go with, hey, keep the young players and continue to develop them, well, how do you find that number 2 to ride with Steph? And if you don't have that 2 to ride with Steph, then what are you? You're a different version, I think, of the same of what you've been to this point. So I think they got to make a move. Like I said, Wiggins, Kuminga, Chris Paul would be the 3, because Chris Paul's not going to be here next year anyway. I mean, that we know, as much as the veteran players have liked playing with him. I think that much we absolutely know. All right, back to the phones. 808 KNBR, Charlie is next here on the Sports Leader. What's going on, Charlie?
Hey, JD, what's going on, buddy? Just a couple of quick observations. I think the league in general is slowly going back to a bigger player. You look at teams like Minnesota, Pelicans tonight. They're all long and tall. In OKC. That's just an observation. And with the Warriors, the way they're constructed, they went old, slow, and small. I think they need a complete rebuild. I don't think any one trade this year will make them a contender. The dynasty is over. Draymond coming back, I don't think will do much. This team they're so dysfunctional and lost and without any confidence. I agree with you. They do need to make trades, but I think they do it for the look into the future. What I would do if they can't make any trades, I would say, Clay, here's a team friendly. I know they offered him 2 for $50, I think, and he turned it down.
Yeah.
I would say maybe something along those lines. I would try to move Wiggins, like you said. You trade him for some other team's problem, and maybe for a position of need. You let Chris Paul expire. If you can't move him, I would move Draymond, and I would say to Steph, I would say to him, listen, we're leaving it up to you, but we need to rebuild. And maybe in 2-3 years, in the twilight at the end of your career, maybe we have another shot at making another run. If you want to be moved and move to a contender, I know I'm going to get lambasted for suggesting we move Steph, but I've been a fan of this team for 40 plus years. I'm going to root for them long after Steph I was rooting for them when World B. Free was playing for them, and Joe Barry cares less. I will root for them. I'll root for them after Steph retires. This team needs to be gutted and rebuilt. And I would say, Steph, this is what we need. This is the new game plan. And if you're on board, obviously we want you to retire as a Warrior. But if you want to get on a contender and try to get another ring with someone else, we'll honor that. But This team needs to be rebuilt. The dynasty is over, and I would move on. It's time.
Thanks, Charlie.
Anyway.
Look, the only way they move on from Steph is if Steph wants to move on. I mean, that's the bottom line there. Now, to me, and these are part of the big time conversations that I think are going to happen over the course of the next month, the Warriors are going to have to bring Steph in and get his input on the whole thing. They're going to have to say, hey, Steph, we're thinking this. We could do that. Because the reality is there's a bunch of different things the Warriors could do. And look, if Steph is cool with basically being kind of what Kobe Bryant was at the end of Kobe Bryant's career and in the in-between time of Kobe and Shaq breaking up and Kobe and Pau Gasol and that group with Ron Artest that ended up winning a couple of more championships. Like, if you want to go young players and pieces and try to win 43 games with Steph for a couple of years, and he's cool with that, then and you're developing this young core around him, that's fine. But he has to be on board with that. And if he's not on board with that, you owe Steph Curry, in my mind, the courtesy of not looking to do that. But in the short term, if you're looking to improve this team, I think you have to be willing and open to move from Kuminga and or Wiggins and Paul. But again, Paul has more value because of his contract than Wiggins. Wiggins has the least amount of value of the three at this point by far. But he'd have to be in there as a salary filler if you're going to bring anybody back of consequence. Mike and Moraga next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Mike. What's going on, Mike? We lost Mike. We lost Mike there. Or do we have Mike? Do we have Mike or not? We have Mo. All right, let's go to Mo in East Palo Alto. What's going on, Mo?
Hey, JD. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I concur with a lot of what the last caller said. And they just look like they're sleepwalking, man. And it's like the whole organization looks like sleepy.
Yes.
Like, it was Jason, I think it was the 49er, which is the defensive end, Hargrove. He was talking about the difference between playing for the Eagles and playing for the Niners. And interestingly, he compared the Eagles to the Warriors, saying, everything's so chill over there. Everybody's so relaxed. And, over here it's more like the Miami Heat. I was like, oh, wow. Like, do they even battle? Like, these last two seasons, like, I haven't even seen – there's games where they just, like, they don't even battle. Like, I don't care about their record. I don't like watching them play because there's, like, no fight. I'd rather watch the Santa Cruz Warriors battle than these guys just kind of sleepwalking. And I love them, but Steve Kerr, like, I don't know what – I mean, it just seems like a mess. Like, who's he going to play tonight? What rotation? Like, so many. It just looks like massive dysfunction.
Yeah.
Trade them all. I mean, you can trade them all. It's not going to make a difference. There is a cultural problem. I don't know how it started. I don't know if it started with Draymond's punch. I have no idea, but it looks awful. I mean, no fight.
No, Mo, you're right, and thanks for the call. 808 KNBR, the number. It's looked ugly. I mean, it really has. They have been lifeless far more, I think, in the last couple of weeks than they have been at any point. But there have been a lot of games, really last year and this year, and I do think you can point to the Draymond punch as the thing that really, coming off of the championship in 2022, that flipped it back down a negative path. I think that's absolutely what's because the vibes were immaculate. Jordan Poole's going to get paid. They're coming off a chip. Everybody's feeling good. And then boom. And then they never truly were able to recover. Got back to the 6 seed, beat Sacramento, lost to the Lakers, but never truly recovered. But I think these last 2 years, there's just been a lot of games where, remember last year, early in the year, they were just going through the motions. Kerr wasn't really playing the young guys. The vets were playing. They lost a bunch of games to the Orlandos and the Detroits and all these bad teams on the road. Couldn't beat anybody on the road till basically Thanksgiving. And they just they looked like a team that wanted to coast but wasn't good enough to coast and still get wins. And I think that's been the part that's been a lot more difficult for the championship core players, is the fact that the Warriors used to be so damn good that they could coast on a night-in, night-out basis, basically on some nights, not all, because some nights they showed up and they just beat the snot out of everybody. But there were a lot of nights where they wouldn't play well for a quarter. And you know what they'd do? They'd come back and they'd get you 40-15 in the next quarter. And they'd win the damn game anyway. And everybody would forget about the terrible quarter. Hell, there were a lot of nights during the dynasty where the Warriors would be flat out for 25, 30 minutes. And then they'd have the best 18-minute stretch you've ever seen, and that would be good enough to win the game. And in the post-game press conference afterwards, it would be, oh, my God, that run was so incredible, and Steph got going, and Clay made 8 threes in a row, and Curry put dudes in the blender. This was Joe H. They had Durant. This was when they had Durant and when they didn't have Durant. Yeah, part of it was when they had Durant, but it was both. But they would just cook. And what I'm getting at is, of course it's not going to be the same now because they're older, but I think it's been a hard adjustment for the Warriors after having so many years where they could basically, with Steph, Clay, and Draymond, play a bad quarter, play a terrible 2.5 quarters, and win on one good quarter. And now they can't do that. You have a terrible quarter, they can't win the game a lot of the nights. So it just sets everything up in a difficult path. You are listening to KNBR AM and FM San Francisco, the sports leader, a Cumulus media station. We'll get one more call, a couple more calls in here before we pause, and a lot of people in the YouTube chat as well to get into, including Douglas Mikes. Warriors have had the salary and assets to make a move or moves. It's just a matter of when. Well, the clock is ticking. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. KM Johnson with an interesting thought as well. I'm saying I can totally hear Kerr coming on saying, I'm not what this team needs anymore. Not saying I know when he will say it, though. I have thought for the last week that there could be a resignation coming. Now, and then you go to the next press conference, like yesterday, he's there, and Draymond's speaking and all that. I'm thinking, it's probably not coming today. And I don't think it's coming the day before they go on a 4-game road trip for the next week. But I've had thoughts about this team that I never would have imagined that I would have over the last 7 to 10 days. Mike and Moraga on the Sports Leader. Hey, Mike.
Hey, JD. Good show. Couple of points. I think we're now seeing why Kerr has been hesitant to play the young guys. They're just not very good. I mean, let's face it. We're losing by 40 points with heavy minutes from the young guys. Jonathan Kuminga is the most athletic person I've probably ever seen in a Warrior uniform. Has no idea how to play basketball. They should have 12 guys on the trading block, and I'm not sure who they even get, but they could probably make some changes. But let's face it, we're at the end of the road. We're kind of the Chicago Bulls now, getting post-Jordan, and not to continue to sound horribly negative, but it's just that dire. I don't know if there's one change that does it, but I don't think there's anybody that's young that you'd hang on to. Still have Curry, Dre come back. If you can make one move and keep this going. My last point before I go, I hate the term rebuild more than anything. I don't know what that means. People talk about rebuild. Rebuild to me means you have no idea what you're going to do in the future. You have none. And I think everybody's open for a trade, except for Steph and Dre and probably Clay. And you hope you can land something and get another last run. Anyway, I'll take it off the air. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. 808 KNBR, the number here on the Sports Leader. It's Dubs OT with JD. Just rolling here through a Wednesday night. Warriors get smoked by the Pelicans. Look, I think it's too strong to say that this is why Kerr's been reluctant to play the young guys. The young guys have helped this team in limited roles this year. like, it has not been a complete and utter failure by any stretch. In fact, they've really helped the Warriors a lot over the course of the last month. The one thing I will say, though, I think it has been a little bit unfair how much has been put on the young players by the fan base, and I do think by some in the media to basically be the saviors. Like, I think it's unfair to Podziemski and Trace Jackson-Davis and Moody and Kuminga, in particular Kuminga, to be like, hey, these guys are going to be riding with Steph and carrying it. Like, that's unfair to them. They're still trying to grow and develop. But yeah, to me, it's way too strong to say this is why. Oh, well, this is why Kerr has been hesitant. No, I think it's why he's been hesitant to play him a lot of minutes. But I don't think you can say, well, the young guys played a lot of minutes tonight, and that's why the Warriors got smoked. No, the Warriors got smoked because Steph and Klay came out and were terrible tonight. Now, yes, Kuminga was bad too, and Podziemski was the worst player on the court tonight. Just reality. It happens. Again, he's a young player who's going through some struggles. Really was helping the Warriors. Now he's going through some struggles. But it was a collective. I mean, Wiggins ended up being one of the worst players on the floor despite having a pretty good 6-7 minute stretch to close the second quarter. So I can't put tonight on the young guys. Tonight was on everybody. Tonight specifically, I think, is more on the vets to not come out and hold this team up and set a tone that they were not going to get embarrassed again. I can't blame young guys for coming out after getting blown out and not totally knowing how to react or respond or fight through. To me, the veterans have to set that tone. So I'm putting this one more on the veterans. All right, I'm going to react to more of what the caller had to say there. We'll also get to Mike, the dog trainer. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
From Chef Curry to CP3, we're repping the Bays team. Dubs OT with John Dickinson now continues. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Bad pass stolen by Nance. That's 6 turnovers already for Golden State. Good look for Hawkins. Hawkins connects on a 3. That's their 7th three-pointer already.
And Mike, the Warriors are contributing. This is the point about Chris Paul. These would normally be Chris Paul minutes. Manning the second unit, keeping the turnover percentage low.
Yeah, it was the starters turning it over, too. It's Doris Burke there, Mike Breen, Doc Rivers along for the ride on ABC here on a Wednesday. It's John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. That was one of 9 three-pointers that the Pelicans made in the first quarter. 9 of 16. Pelicans put 46 on the Dubs in the first quarter. Again, that was the worst defensive first quarter the Warriors have had in a home game since 1991. Got to go all the way back to 91. And the Warriors had 7 turnovers in the first. Warriors had 7 turnovers, and the Pelicans made 9 threes in the first. That's how you get. How do you get down 46-27? That's how you get down 46-27. Ugly, ugly stuff. Warriors now 17-20, and they're about to hit the road as they've played a league fewest, along with the Rockets and the Suns, 15 games away from home. So they got a whole lot of games to make up, 24 of them. Actually, that's 26 of them. Whew. Yeah, 26 games still to come away from chasing her. Tonight was the Warriors' 22nd home game. So they got 19 home and 26 away over the course here of the remainder of the season. Back to the phones here in just a second. 808 KNBR is the number. Question of the night, how much can you realistically expect from Draymond Green as far as helping this team? And I'm of the belief they have to make a move. What is the move that needs to be made? I've honed in on 3 players that the Warriors need to be open-minded in looking to trade. It's Jonathan Kuminga, it's Andrew Wiggins, and it's Chris Paul. Chris Paul because of his contract. Andrew Wiggins because of his salary paired with somebody else. And then Kuminga because I think he by far has the most value. So if the Warriors are going to go all in and look to try and salvage this thing by bringing in a younger veteran to ride with Steph, Clay, and Draymond here to the finish line, try to get this thing back on track and make a run at basically just trying to get into the play-in tournament at this point, I think those are the 3 that have to be potentially looked at to be on the block. Couple of quick ones on the YouTube chat. Appreciate the dialogue from San Jose Jazz fan and Regulator and Lebanon James checking in. I think you pull the trigger on Siakam, get him to re-sign, and retain Wiggins and retain Kuminga. Wiggins and Moody are the best offer Toronto has. Well, we don't know what the best offer Toronto has is. And I think Indiana can offer better than that. If the Kings aren't going to offer Keegan Murray, fine, that's done anyway because Siakam said he wasn't going to sign there. If Jalen Johnson's not being offered by Atlanta, okay, fine, I wouldn't do a deal with them if I'm Toronto. And the Warriors aren't offering Kuminga, then I'd look to Indiana because I think they've got a better group of complementary role players that are young that could be fit into a deal than the Wiggins/Moody component. But if you can do that, then you got to do it. Like it's basically like I've said about Sacramento up until the point where they pulled out. Like if you're the Kings and you can get Siakam without giving up Keegan Murray, then more power to you. If you're the Warriors and you can get Siakam without giving up Kuminga, then more power to you. And that would be great. 808 KNBR. The number as the Warriors get thumped tonight. Rich Rad, keep the big 3, Moody, Trace, and Kuminga. The rest of the team is buns. Well, if you do that, then you aren't getting any better. Rebel to Sounds, JD, is Kuminga better at the 3 or the 4? I think he's better at the 4. He barely plays the 3. I think he's better at the 4. I think he's better in this Warriors offense at the 4. I don't think the Warriors, frankly, I've said this a lot, I don't think the Warriors view Kuminga as a 3. Which creates another problem if you end up getting Siakam, because Siakam's a 4 and a 5. So that becomes tough. All right, let's go back to the phones. Mike, the dog trainer, next here on The Sports Leader. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing? I like your show. I'm driving down the road in this crazy rain, and I'm listening to what you're saying. You're making a lot of sense. I wanted to throw something a little different here, but along with what a lot of callers and what I've heard in other talk shows, including yourself, if I was I asked myself this question: if I was an assistant to Steve Kerr right now, and he calls a coaches meeting and he says, "Hey, look, guys, I'm open to a couple suggestions here. I bracket my own brain. What do you guys think?" This is what I would tell my boss, Steve Kerr. I'd say, "Look, boss, all these guys are saying stuff. We've tried combinations. Things aren't going real well. Why don't we ask these guys to show us what they've got? Let's do an evaluation of everybody, including Curry, and let's ask them for 90% effort for 7 to 8 minutes. And when they get gassed from running down each end of the floor, raise your hand. We'll bring in the next guy behind you, and we'll rotate you guys. And if we get 90% effort from everybody and we can see what you can actually do mentally and physically, we'll do this a few games and see if we perform better. We'll see what we've got. Those guys that perform, we make notes. Those guys that don't, we make notes, and then we make evaluations and possible trades from there." I never see anybody held to accountability. These players just say, we got to get in a flow, we got to get in a rhythm. But obviously, you're a smart guy. They have no rhythm. They're not in a flow. The only flow that's going is down a toilet, and they're making all this money. So to be fair to the fans, to be fair to them, the players, to be fair to the coaches, and to be fair to the owners, let's ask these guys to play at both ends of the floor for a handful of minutes. Raise your hand when you're tired. Come on out, and we'll know what we have. That's my take. I'll take my answer off the air.
Yeah, appreciate it. And look, I think as far as accountability goes, I think everybody's kind of demanding accountability at this point. Like, I think Steve Kerr's done that. The problem, though, is when you start looking at Steph and Clay, and even Draymond to a certain extent, although Draymond's the easiest to call out and say has to be accountable because he's made some specific decisions and had some specific actions to where you can say, all right, this can't stand, with the antics with the officiating and what happened with Rudy Gobert and Yusuf Nurkic and all of that. Like, that's what can't continue to happen. But with Steph and Clay, and especially Steph, it's like, I mean, you really expect Steve Kerr to look Steph Curry in the eye and start ripping him to shreds? I mean, just go back to what Steve Kerr said yesterday. I mean, the burden that's been put on Steph is unfair. I mean, I think Steph, to me, looks tired right now. He looks like a guy that, for a stretch, had done everything he could, basically to carry this team, to try and keep them afloat. And now he's going through struggles at a time where he's also not getting a lot of help, and this thing's careening down the mountain. But they got to figure something out. And I don't think Draymond Green coming back is going to be the only thing that ultimately helps this team. But tonight was ugly. Tonight was ugly. YouTube chat, people checking in here. We'll get to Sounds of Silver coming up in just a moment. A lot of people wanting to trade Andrew Wiggins for a bag of balls, a pack of razors, or not much anything. Yeah, the Warriors defense, Michael Teague checking in. Warriors defense, really bad. And it's been really bad without Draymond Green, even worse. And then you compound that with taking bad shots and having turnovers. Douglas Mikes might be a situation where everybody not named Steph, Clay, Draymond get traded. Mike Dunleavy Jr. might go scorched earth. Not great. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think the Warriors have young players that can be role players. I think the one least interested in being a role player is Kuminga, and that's fine. He also has the highest upside. So then you just have to make the determination, if you're the Warriors, do you believe in his upside with this franchise? Do you believe it's so high that he can be either a number 2 with Steph that can be in the playoffs and win in a playoff series or two? And if you do, then hang on to him. By all means, hang on to him. If you don't, then he's your best path to add another player to this roster that can potentially help this team. Everybody wants to trade Wiggins, and believe me, I get it. It's been terrible, and he's on a bad contract. And he shows signs at this point of getting worse more than he's getting better. Although Steve Kerr pushed back on that, which I thought was a little bit odd. He was asked about Wiggins. And again, I think Steve Kerr right now is trying to keep everybody's value up as much as possible and everybody's spirits up as much as possible. But he said yesterday he thought, everybody was bad the last 2 games. Wiggins has actually been pretty good the 12 or 13 games before the last 2 games. Well, he wasn't good tonight, other than the 6-7 minute stretch where they came from 25 down to cut it to 13 before halftime. So, I mean, I get it. Everybody wants Wiggins to go. But I don't think there's a lot of value right now around the league for teams wanting to add Andrew Wiggins into the mix. YSL for life. When does the NBA pull their national television games? Well, the Warriors are in a lot of games that can't be flexed. Like, none of the ABC games ever get flexed, usually. ESPN games can. But here's the thing. The Warriors, as long as Steph Curry's playing, Warriors are a major national brand still. The only time their games are going to get really pulled would be if Steph's out. Play in, Enrique Rivera. Play in? I think it was the Jim Mora tone. Play in? Yeah, Rich Ray, the dynasty crumbled in 2 weeks. Shake my head. Stephen Wu, Bob Myers picked a great time to leave the Warriors. Play-in? Don't talk about play-in. Yeah. Well, you got to be talking about something. Because I think the Warriors at this point are far too veteran to be talking about not looking to be in the play-in tournament. They're far too much of a veteran team to be a bottom 5 team in the West. They do right now, Enrique Rivera, look like a lottery team, though. Wiggins for a can of corn. That's become the theme on the YouTube chat tonight, is Wiggins for what? A bucket of balls, a can of corn.
JD, I wrote down some of my favorites.
A Costco hot dog.
It's like the only thing giving me joy tonight.
What else you got, Greg? Yeah, Greg Silver joining us here.
Bag of marshmallows, bowl of chili, corned beef hash, and then I have my favorite one and least favorite one. My favorite one is free healthcare.
Well, here's the thing. All of these things, you'd have to add a sweetener to. Or take back a player that's making. So you can get Wiggins and corned beef hash coming back, but you also have to take another player that's struggling probably as much as Wiggins.
The current state of Wiggins for free healthcare is one of the more lopsided deals. That's like worse than the Russell Wilson trade, I think.
It's not good right now. And so, I mean, you'd almost have to include Kuminga as a sweetener, and I hate to even speak to it like that, but you'd almost need a player of Kuminga's level and talent to be able to move Wiggins. And I don't really get the impression the Warriors would want to move both unless they view Wiggins as being just a completely lost cause at this point.
Maybe some other lineup can try playing them together and see how that goes.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It's tough. It's really tough. Sean on the YouTube chat. Wiggins for just the Costco hot dog. They can keep the bun and the soda. Oh, my goodness.
You know what my least favorite one was? And I apologize to whoever put this for not giving you credit.
Chicken Caesar wrap.
Chicken Caesar wrap. That's pretty good.
It's good.
The worst one I saw was Wiggins for Brad Wanamaker. Dude.
Poor Brad Wanamaker.
Poor Brad Wanamaker.
Brad Wanamaker was the Chris Chioza of Ty Jerome's. Poor guy. Hey, by the way, it took until we were almost an hour and 40 minutes into this thing tonight. Corey Joseph was part of that lineup that played pretty well at the end of the first half. YouTube chat going to go crazy on that one. Rockin' New Era 84, great question. Does Wiggins even care? The tough part about Wiggins is when he doesn't play well, it doesn't look like he cares. I think Wiggins cares. And I don't know what's going on with Wiggins personally that still may be going on or what led to this season. I don't know. And yes, San Jose Jazz fan, the third, Lacob desperately wants to make Kuminga a star. Well, that is factored in the equation about all of this. Because if they don't want to trade Kuminga because they believe he can be a star, well, again, that's fine. But when is he going to become a star? 2 years from now? 3 years from now? Like, do you think he can make that jump next year? And again, I'm not even being cynical about it. I'm just saying if you think that, then by all means keep him. Wiggins for some Canadian bacon and maple syrup. All right, 808 KNBR is the number. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. We'll come back. We'll get Sounds of Silver. We'll do a quick fun with numbers as well. We can sneak in a couple of more calls. The YouTube chat has been off the hook tonight. So many comments, it's been hard to keep up. So I'm going to try to copy and paste as many of the best ones as possible. Final segment straight ahead. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Welcome back to the Warriors Invitational, baby.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back. Dubs OT with JD here on the Esports Leader. Final segment. Let's bring in Greg Silver. As we always do here, let's head into the locker room and the post-game press conferences over at Chase Center. What do you got tonight, Greg?
Well, we have a lot of sound. I'm going to be honest. There was a lot to sort through, which...
Greg is the soul of the Warrior fan. And that sigh, that told it all. It really said it all tonight.
Yeah, interesting night all around, but we're going to start with a rather sinister cut. Then we got a couple of funny ones. The Wiggins chat, honestly, really gave me a second wind on the back half of this show. So we'll start with Steve Kerr, because this was a little bit alarming, and I don't want to make the same points on the show 15 times over, but there's only so much to say about a classic beatdown, and this is Kerr talking about losing some spirit and confidence. Not exactly what you want to hear at the midpoint in the season.
Yeah, we deserved it for sure. Fell behind immediately. And I think we're just lacking confidence right now. You just sort of, you get to a stage sometimes where you just kind of lose your belief, and it happens. And that's what's happened right now with our team the last few days. I think we've just lost the spirit, the confidence that has to carry you, against talented teams night in and night out.
Wow. Now that is not good. I mean, that is not good, because when that happens, the only thing that can get it back is going and getting a big win or a couple of big wins. And the truth is, I mean, you look at what's ahead, and, I'd like to say, hey, winnable games, but, I mean, the reality is the Chicago Bulls have a better record than the Warriors right now. The Milwaukee Bucks, who they play on Saturday, are among the best teams in the NBA still, 25-12. Then they go to Memphis, who's won 3 in a row, even losing John Morant for the season, and have won 6 of the last 10. They got off to a horrendous start. They're playing better. And, I mean, the Grizzlies right now are closer to the Warriors than the Warriors are to 8th in the West, which is it's kind of crazy. And then they're playing Utah, who we just talked about in the last segment, is now ahead of the Warriors. So, it's not getting any easier. This team's got to win a couple of games just to stabilize themselves on this road trip, or then what? And you're coming home, and you got good teams coming to Chase on this next homestand. Sacramento's coming to Chase in this next homestand. Dallas is coming back. You're playing the Lakers. You're playing the Sixers. So these next 9-10 games are no joke. And this team's now 3 games under 500. So, I mean, that is, how do you get it back is the question. I think they need an infusion. I think they need Draymond coming back, but I also think they need to make a move. What else you got, Greg?
Well, somebody in the chat, I think it was KM Johnson, said, man, that sounds depressing. I think he was talking about the cut anyway.
Sounds defeated. I mean, It sounds like we talked about the Warriors playing like they quit. That is the sound of a coach who's looking around like, is my team quitting on me? To put it bluntly.
Well, Steph Curry was at the podium, and he talked about trying to solve the issues and it going the opposite. I don't think I have to say much more than that, and let's hear it.
Same feeling, because the Denver game played well enough to win. He didn't, and then these last 2, you just get embarrassed. And I think you get to a point where you're trying to explain it away, trying to figure out what can change, specifically that can help us. And that's, the conversations that are happening in between games and, film sessions in the locker room. but it's headed the opposite way, and I don't know what to say about it, just because we're not used to this kind of vibe around our team, so we have to acknowledge it. Not let go of the rope, as they say, when it comes to our belief that we can just win the next game, but it all sucks.
Yeah, it all sucks. And look, this is as bad as the Warriors have been with Steph Curry. I mean, pre-Mark Jackson. I mean, this is as bad as the Warriors have been with Steph Curry since Monte. I mean, it just hasn't happened. Warriors made that trade in 2012, and they were winning 47 and winning 50 and winning titles.
Isn't it crazy that they were 6-2 this year?
They were 6-2 this year.
It feels like forever ago.
And that's the only time where it's felt somewhat like they had an order or semblance of order to their rotation. Draymond was out at the beginning, but they plugged Chris Paul in, because remember, Chris Paul was the big question was Chris Paul going to be coming off the bench or starting lineup? And with Draymond out, Chris Paul got the opportunity to start, but they basically told him he was going to be coming off the bench when Draymond came back, and that worked out. It worked without Draymond for a couple, and then Draymond came back. They got on a run. They were 6-2. They went to Denver. They had a competitive loss and came home 6-3. And the two stretches that have absolutely wrecked this Warrior season, the 1-5 homestand leading up to Thanksgiving in November, and this homestand where the Warriors end up going 2-5. So 3-10 in 13 games worth of the two longest homestands of the season. And that's where this team finds itself now in the position to where they are 3 games under 500. What's next, Greg?
More from Steph, talking about the trade deadline this time.
28 days away.
Says the word distraction. You think? I think it's probably a little bit of a distraction in that building right now. There's probably a lot going on. So this is Steph talking about the trade deadline and how his team can't get caught up in it. I know he's been in this position before between him and Monte Ellis many, many years ago, but this is what he had to say on the present day.
We have a standard that's pretty evident that if things stay the same, that's a definition of insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So as players and what we can do, we have to control our effort, our focus, competitiveness, control the things that we can on the court. Like every NBA season, every organization, that stuff works itself out, and you can't allow yourself to get distracted by that, because whether you're at the top of the standings or the bottom, there's always rumors swirling, there's always conversations, and it's just a part of the business. And until anything happens, you can't get caught up in it, because it rob you of your opportunity to play good basketball. And that's kind of where we're at.
I mean, it sounds to me almost as if Steph is acknowledging the fact that maybe the trade deadline even being a month away, but all the rumors about this team needing to improve and this and that, it like he thinks maybe it is impacting people already. I think Kuminga's played like that a little bit. I think Wiggins for sure has played that way. I mean, he should be the first and foremost, but are guys kind of playing different? I mean, I don't know that I've noticed it. Those would be the two. If I had noticed anybody. I mean, Moody's been pretty good the last couple games. I don't think he's worried about it. Trace Jackson-Davis has been fine. Podziemski's really struggling. I don't think Podziemski's thinking about getting traded. I just think he's a rookie going through normal ups and downs of being a rookie. He really helped this team for a few weeks, and he's really struggled here for the last, week to 10 days.
With no margin for error.
Yeah, it happens.
Both in the good and bad.
It happens. No doubt. And he's got to play. Like, it's just so, especially with Chris Paul out, he's going to play. What is next?
We got two more answering the same question.
Okay.
From the Splash Brothers. Which one do you want to hear first?
Let's just keep it with Steph then, since we have been talking Steph. Oh, is this about the booze?
This is about the booze.
Okay. Yeah, let's hear Steph first.
We'll hear Steph first.
No, for real.
This is the second straight game that you guys were booed here. How does that make you feel when you hear that?
I don't even know what to say about it because I don't want to be prisoners of the moment and understand, we're obviously struggling. There's nothing to really cheer about, so the opposite of cheering is booing. Might as well. I don't take it any certain type of way. Honestly, I'm booing myself, booing our team in my head because of the way we're playing. So, it is what it is. Fans are going to react the way that they want. It's our job to, give them something to cheer about.
Okay. Although I think the silence and the inability to formulate an answer was pretty telling. Can we roll that back? Shayna Rubin on the question.
This is the second straight game that you guys were booed here. How does that make you feel when you hear that?
All right. Whenever he actually answers.
I don't even know what to say about it because...
Yeah, wow. That's pretty telling. But it's not the way Klay Thompson reacted to the same question, is it, Greg?
I need to start keeping a list of all the Klays we're getting. We had upbeat Klay. We had somber Klay. This one was just
this
like...
edgy Klay?
This was just short and sassy. Edgy's a good word, yeah. This is Klay, and it's 11 seconds. Number 11.
Klay, you guys have been booed each of the last 2 home games. Obviously, you're not used to that. How do you handle that?
Are you supposed to lose sleep over it?
Did he also say, I don't care before that?
Yeah, you got a little I don't care at the end of the question. Let's run it back.
Let's run that one back.
Klay, you guys have been booed each of the last 2 home games. Obviously, you're not used to that. How do you handle that?
Are you supposed to lose sleep over it?
I mean, I get it. I mean, I thought Klay's vibe was changing. I thought Klay was going to be, I mean, hell, he was out in the Bay, I think, the other day on Monday. Man, another 2 hours in the books here on Dubs OT.
You want to get into some not so fun with numbers?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that before we call it a night. Geez. I mean, that is tough. I mean, this team is not in a good place right now. And again, I don't know what fixes it. Because here's the thing about the all-time greats. The all-time greats, these guys have been to 6 finals. Steph, Klay, Draymond have been to 6 NBA finals. They've won 4 of them. They've won titles. They've lost Game 7s. They literally have seen it all. They broke the all-time regular season wins record. Like, they've seen ups. They've seen Klay's 2 straight years wrecked by injury. The all-time greats know when a team stinks. They know when a team isn't good. Like, Steph and Klay and Draymond right now know in their heart of hearts what this team is or is not capable of. And I think when you look at the way that they've played these last 2 games, and you're looking around like, oh my God, there's no response. How could this be happening? It's as gutless as it's ever been. My first thought becomes they know. They know that this team's got no action and that it's borderline unsalvageable as it's currently constituted. And that's where their fight at the beginning of a lot of these games changes, and they lose it and they can't get it back. And that's the part where, Klay gets defiant. Steph can't find the words. Draymond's MIA. It's not good. And again, the only thing that fixes it is getting on a little bit of... The only thing that stabilizes it is winning Friday. And then taking your chances with... I mean, really what stabilizes it, this team they need to win in Chicago and win in Memphis and win in Utah, as great as the Jazz have been playing. Like, they really need to go on the road trip and go 3-1. 2-2, even.
I'll take 1-3.
No, you will not take 1-3 because then you're 5 under 500 at that point coming back. Like, you're basically toast. You got to win.
You got me down bad tonight.
You got to win 2. You got to beat Chicago and you got to beat Memphis. Minimum. And you got to, to me, like, go be, again, none of these games I'm booking as shoulds. Like, when you're 17-20, there's no such thing as a should. Like, there's no, but if this team can't go 2-2 or 3-1, then what the hell are they left playing for? Here's the other thing. You start making trades. That means you're going to be down a few players for a couple of games, too. If you make a 3-for-1 trade, that means you're probably playing shorthanded for a few games. So I would think they probably can't afford to make a trade till Draymond comes back. And when will Draymond come back? All right. Fun with numbers tonight here on the Sports Leader. Warriors have lost 6 of the last 8, including the last 2. Season-high 7-game homestand, 2-5. Just gross. We talked about the 1-5 homestand in November. This is a 2-5, so they're 3-10 on those 2 homestands. They're 8-1 in the other 9 games at home. Bizarre, right? So the 2 long homestands, they've stunk. But the other 9 games, they're 8-1. So they've actually handled themselves pretty well. But yeah, 11-11 overall. That's already 3 more losses than they took all of last year on the Chase Center hardwood. The Warriors allowed 141. That's the most they've allowed this year. Defense was horrendous. Most points ever scored by New Orleans against Golden State was 140. So 141 is the new high. The 36-point loss was historic. The 36-point loss, Greg, was the largest home defeat since 2007. 2007, the We Believe team in March of 2007, so toward the end of that season before they got hot, March 26th of 2007, right before their finish to get the 8 seed, they got beat by the Spurs, who went on to win the title by 37, 126-89. It's tied for the 6th largest margin of defeat at home in franchise history. Moses Moody, another 21 for Mo Moody. In this one, 4 of 8 from 3. Third time this season he scored at least 21. Trace Jackson Davis had a career high tonight. 19 points off the bench. His prior career high was the game against the Mavs on December the 30th. And Jonathan Kuminga did extend his career-best double-figure streak. That double-figure streak keeps going. 17 straight games, he had 12 points tonight. That's all I got. Thanks to everyone on YouTube and Twitch. Thanks to everybody who called, and the phone lines were on fire at the beginning of the program. We've been on for over 2 hours, and the interaction has just been fantastic. Really appreciate it as we continue to grow this thing here on KNBR, the Sports Leader. All right, that'll do it. Back on Friday, following the Warriors and the Chicago Bulls as they go at it in Chicago. That's a 5 o'clock tip. We'll be with you right about 7:15, 7:30. And we'll keep it going as long as the people want to talk. Got that right. Pour yourself a call. You might need it. And then Milwaukee Saturday, Memphis Monday, Utah a week from tonight before the Warriors are back home, a week from Friday when they'll take on the Mavs once again. All right. We'll talk to you Friday. For Greg Silver, for Raf Corral, I'm John Dickinson. It's Dubs OT with JD, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
See, this is not a good sign. There's 5:40 remaining here in the second. We're already talking about another sport.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
This team just cannot defend. They get confused. They don't know how to rotate. It's almost as if they don't fully understand the scheme without Draymond out on the floor yelling at everybody, telling them where to be.
We got Steph Curry.
If that doesn't tell you the pieces don't fit, I don't know what else does.
Oh, great! I hate it!
But but I just feel like Steve Kerr is at a point where he's almost tried everything and nothing seems to work for longer than maybe 3 or 4 games, or there's an injury, or there's a suspension, and then you got to change it all up again.
The only flow that's going is down a toilet.
Gutless.